Her blood smeared across his hands. He shoved her up into the saddle. A sharp whistle cut the air. The arrow grazed his ear. He dropped flat. Hooves crashed behind him. Another arrow struck the stirrup. He yanked the reins. She slipped. He caught her leg. A third arrow thudded into the saddle horn. He hauled himself up behind her. Shouting rose from the ridge. A rider broke from the trees. The woman gasped. Blood dripped down her side. He kicked hard. The horse bolted forward. 5 more riders surged from the canyon wall. One of them raised a torch. Another raised a rifle. The next shot cracked. The bullet struck the saddle horn and split it down the middle. Wood burst apart. The woman lurched sideways. Her weight dragged him with her. He caught her under the arm and hauled her upright just as another arrow slammed into the dirt inches from his boot. The horse bucked in panic. He wrapped the reins around his wrist and drove a heel into its side. It surged forward in a violent leap. Pain exploded in his leg. A fourth arrow punched through his thigh. Bone jolted. Muscle tore. His foot slipped from the stirrup. He clamped his jaw and pulled himself back up with raw strength. Blood poured down his boot in hot, rapid streams. The woman sagged against his chest. Her head lolled. Her breath rattled once. Her lips moved. One word escaped. Soft, broken, almost swallowed by the thunder of hooves. He did not understand it. The sound stayed with him as her eyes rolled back and her body went slack in his arms. He tightened his grip around her waist and leaned forward over the saddle. The horse drove on in blind fear. Dust burst beneath its hooves. Behind them, the riders regrouped. Yells rose sharp and violent. One rider broke from the pack, faster than the rest. He lifted a rifle from the saddle scabbard and leveled it with steady hands. The man on the fleeing horse felt the shift in pressure behind him. He did not look back. He pressed low over the woman and kicked again. The horse lurched into a faster run. His wounded leg screamed with every strike of the stirrup. Blood soaked the saddle leather. His vision pulsed at the edges. The rifle came to the rider's shoulder. The barrel tracked the line of his spine. The rider exhaled. The distance closed. Hooves thundered in a rising roar. The woman stirred once and sagged again. Her blood smeared across his hands and arms. His fingers slid slick as he struggled to keep hold of her. The rifle bucked. The sound cracked through the canyon like a breaking bone. The shot tore past his side and plunged into the horse's flank. The animal screamed and stumbled. Its speed faltered. It fought to keep its feet. The man lurched forward and nearly pitched over her body. He forced the reins up with shaking strength and drove the horse onward with his heels and his voice. Another rider shouted. More rifles lifted. Arrows came again in fast, merciless streaks. One buried itself in the ground beneath the horse's chest. Another grazed the saddle skirt and spun away. The wounded horse staggered but did not fall. It ran on in panic and pain. Behind them, the rifleman raised his weapon again. He closed one eye. He found the narrow space between the man and the woman. He steadied his breath. The trigger began to tighten. The canyon narrowed fast. Stone walls rose on both sides like closing jaws. His horse charged forward, flanks heaving, mouth flecked with foam. Echoes of hooves struck the rock and came back louder. Each sound pushed tighter against his nerves. Behind them, the riders shouted. More arrows flew. None hit, but the sound of them made him duck low. Dust swirled around their legs. The canyon floor dipped and bucked. Rocks jutted sharp. The horse stumbled. He felt it falter beneath him. He pulled hard on the reins. The Apache woman groaned. Her body shifted in the saddle, limp and too quiet. He looked ahead. No way through. They were boxed. He yanked the horse to a stop and slid down. His wounded leg gave under him. He grabbed her waist. Blood coated his hand. He pulled her from the saddle. She hit his chest like dead weight. He grunted and half dragged, half carried her toward a crack in the canyon wall. Barely wide enough for them to fit. The horse screamed and bolted forward without them. It vanished down the path. He forced them both into the crevice. The rock scraped his back. Her feet dragged. She murmured something low, unconscious or dreaming. He set her down gently against the wall. Blood soaked through her dress in thick warmth. Her eyes rolled, but did not focus. He drew his revolver, heavy in his hand. He flipped open the cylinder. 4 bullets, no more. No time to think, just the fact. 4 bullets and nothing behind them but men with knives and rifles. A shadow passed over the crack, high above. He looked up without moving his head. Dust filtered down in thin trails, a scraping sound. Stone against stone. A rider was climbing above them, watching, waiting. He held his breath. A boot dropped into view. It landed quiet on a ledge just above their heads. The rider crouched. Hands gripped the rock. A rifle slung across his back. The toes of his boots tapped slow against the ledge as he leaned forward, scanning the canyon floor, listening. Below him, the man did not move. The Apache woman shifted. Her breath hitched once. Blood pooled beneath her legs and seeped into the sand. A fly buzzed. The man raised his revolver an inch. 1 breath. Another. The rider's boot slipped slightly. A pebble fell. It bounced once near the woman's knee. She flinched. The rider stopped moving. His head turned slowly toward the sound. The man kept his eyes locked on the boot above. His finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet. The rider's shadow moved. The crack no longer felt safe. If the rider looked down, it would be over in seconds. Her eyes opened fast and wide. Breath sucked in through her teeth. For a moment she looked past him like she had seen something, rising. Then she turned her head. Blood stuck to her lips. She whispered again. Same word. Slower this time. Drawn out like it carried weight. Like it mattered. He leaned in and mouthed the sound back to her. No language he knew, but the way her eyes locked on him when he said it made something shift. She blinked once, then twice. It could have been a name, could have been a place, could have meant run or stay or die here. He did not know, but he nodded. That was enough for now. He pressed his palm against her side. Blood soaked his fingers again. He tore at her dress near the hem. The fabric came free with a hard rip. He twisted it once, then again, then wrapped it around the wound just above her hip. She gasped. He tied it tight. It was not clean. It was not enough, but it would have to hold. A sound broke through the crack. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. Sand crushed under boots. Stone kicked, then stopped. Silence, then the scratch of flint. Light flared outside. A torch caught. The glow pushed into the crevice and turned the air thick. Smoke rolled slow over the floor. It curled between the rocks and climbed the wall behind her head. Her breathing turned sharp, shallow. She coughed once and reached out. Her hand found his wrist and clamped hard, too strong for someone that close to fading. He looked at her. Her eyes burned through him. Her grip tightened. He stayed still. The shadow of the torch shifted outside. The rider walked closer. Each step came with a low drag, a limp. Someone injured, maybe from the first chase, maybe from something else. The flame drew long shapes on the wall beside them. The crack would not hold if the light came any closer. The rider stopped again. Silence. The torch moved down toward the base of the wall. The man pulled her tighter against him. She still had not let go of his wrist. He put his free hand on the revolver. Smoke crawled toward her face. She turned her head, coughed again. The sound echoed, too loud. The rider outside froze. A pause. Then the crunch of gravel as he turned. The torch lifted. He moved on. They waited. Neither spoke. She released his wrist slowly. Her hand dropped. Her breath shuddered out. Her eyes closed again. He did not move. Outside, the fire faded. The smoke thinned. The wind shifted. But he did not trust the silence. He knew the rider would come back. And next time, he would not be alone. Part 5. She stirred again, barely awake. Her mouth moved in the shape of that word. Her hand touched the rock beside her. Her fingers followed a line carved into the stone. Not random, a mark, a direction. She lifted her chin toward the wall, then looked at him. Urgent, silent. She pressed her palm flat and pointed upward. He followed her eyes. There was a path, worn by feet long gone, etched into the wall at an angle sharp enough to break ankles. No handholds, no ropes. Just rock. She stood. Her legs gave out. He caught her again, lifted her weight against him. His thigh screamed. Blood still poured from the arrow wound. Every step burned. He helped her find the first foothold, then the next. The wall felt alive under their hands. Heat radiated from it. The canyon below twisted and shifted with each movement. One foot slipped. He caught himself on his elbow. Skin tore. He kept going. She moved ahead of him, slow, shaking, determined. Her hand kept tracing that faint groove in the stone, a route only she seemed to see. He felt the blood soak down his boot. Each heartbeat made the pain rise higher in his throat. But he kept going. If he stopped now, they would both die. Below them, a sound cracked the air. A horse screamed, a snap of bone, a long silence. Then a second horse, slower, smarter, climbing. The man did not look down. The woman froze. Her hand hovered in the air. She pointed. There, ahead, a narrow ledge, half hidden behind a jut of stone, barely wide enough for a single foot, but on the wall beside it, a symbol glowed faint in the dust. A sun, not painted, carved, deep and old, the edges worn smooth by wind and time. She reached out. Her fingers brushed the surface. He felt her shake, not from fear, from memory, from recognition. She pressed her palm flat against the carving. Nothing moved. Then the stone under her hand made a soft sound, not a click, not a shift, just a deep resonance that passed through the rock like a held breath. He looked past her. The wall to their right had changed. A crack widened, just enough. She turned to him, her eyes wide. She pressed the mark again. The crevice opened more. Behind them, a voice echoed. Not a word. Just a call. A signal. The second rider had seen them. The man grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the gap. Stone scraped skin. Dust filled their lungs. The ledge cracked once under their weight but held. They slipped inside just as a rifle shot split the air behind them. It missed by inches. Inside the wall, darkness waited, and something more. The passage closed behind them like a throat tightening. The light from outside vanished in a breath. Rock closed the sound of wind and hoof and voice. He pressed forward with one shoulder. The space allowed barely more than his body. She leaned against him. Her weight grew heavier with each step. Then the wall fell away. He stepped into a hollow space. Rough ceiling, cool air. The smell of old fire. Char and ash and time. They stood inside an abandoned shelter carved by hands long gone. Stone shelves along the walls. A pile of bow staves. Flint scattered in a cracked bowl. A water skin tied to a splintered beam. A black ring of burned wood at the center. Cold. Dead. But once alive. She stumbled, fell to her knees. He caught her just before she hit the floor, lowered her down slow, her hands clutched at the earth, then loosened. He knelt beside her, pressed 2 fingers to her neck, still a pulse, but weak, slow. Her blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage. It pooled now beneath her hip. He could smell it. He leaned back, looked down at his leg. The arrow still jutted from the muscle. He reached for the shaft, gritted his teeth, pulled. It came free with a wet pop and a scream buried in his throat. Blood ran fast. He slapped a strip of cloth against it and tied it off with shaking hands. There was no time for rest. He stood, swayed, looked to her. Her face had gone pale, not from fear, from blood loss. He knelt again, brushed the hair from her forehead. Her skin burned hot. Her eyes opened, but did not see him. She whispered something again. Not the same word this time. A different shape. He reached for his belt, drew the revolver, placed it beside her hand, then closed her fingers around the grip. She did not squeeze, but she did not let go. He looked around the shelter. Nothing else to give her, no food, no fire. But the walls would hold, and if she woke and someone came through that passage, she could fire once, maybe twice. He stood again, took one deep breath. Pain rang in his thigh. His head swam. He stepped back toward the crevice, the same narrow slit they had passed through. Beyond it, the world waited. Riders. Rifles. Heat. He looked back once. She lay still. Her chest rose, fell. He nodded to no one, then disappeared into the rock. The silence behind him held. Too heavy for peace? He would ride alone, and pray she was still breathing when he returned. The horse was lean and mean-eyed, not his. Saddle still warm from the man he had taken it from. He pulled the cinch tight and swung up fast. His leg screamed as it bent. Blood soaked into the stirrup. No time, no sound. Just the press of pain behind his eyes and the need to move. He kicked once. The horse lurched forward. Hooves struck the dry path. Loose gravel skittered under its weight. The canyon gave way to a narrow ridge. Slopes dropped on either side into jagged rock. He leaned low. The path curved hard. A sliver of dirt clung to the edge. One slip would mean the canyon floor. He kept the reins tight. The wind pulled at his shirt. Dust lifted behind him. Ahead, the ridge widened, then split. He took the left, a sharper angle, steeper, more exposed. The horse fought the grade. Stone cracked under a back hoof. It slipped, regained. He drove his heels in again. Far behind him, a shout rang out. A rider had seen him. The chase began. The sound of hooves came fast, too fast. He urged the horse faster. His wounded leg throbbed with each impact. The blood ran steady now. His vision narrowed. His breath stayed shallow and sharp. A shot rang out. The sound echoed across the slope. A bullet sliced the air near his shoulder. He ducked, felt the wind of it pass. He did not look back. Another shot cracked. This one struck the ridge to his right. Rock burst beside him. He flinched. The horse kept on. The ridge dipped suddenly. A dry creek bed opened before him. Too wide to step, too narrow to stop. He leaned forward and shouted once. The horse launched. The air hung silent. Then the crash of hooves on the far side. The horse nearly buckled. Its front leg landed wrong, stumbled, then held. He did not slow. The rider behind fired again. This one struck the saddle horn. Wood splintered. He hunched lower. More dust filled his eyes. He could barely see, but he kept the path. Another bend, a low ridge wall. He aimed for it. The horse ran harder, its chest heaving, foam at the bit. It wouldn't last much longer. He did not care. Each heartbeat felt slower than the last. His hand trembled on the reins. He knew if he fell now, they would never find his body. He pressed his boots in, leaned forward. Blood ran down his boot and dropped in rhythm with the hoofbeats. The next shot missed, but it was closer. He could feel it coming. The chase had only just begun. The town rose from dust like a scar. No fences, no gates. Just a few buildings crouched under the weight of the sun. He rode in low in the saddle, the horse near collapse. Foam on its chest, blood on its flank. His own blood soaked down his leg in thick streams. His vision swam. He did not slow. The doctor's house was marked with a faded cross on the door, white paint cracked and dry. He dismounted stiff, landed hard, nearly dropped, limped to the porch, and slammed his fist on the wood. Once, twice, 3 times. The door opened. The man inside wore spectacles and a vest too clean for the desert. His face tightened when he saw the blood, then more when he saw the coat soaked in it. Dark stains, fresh, old, Apache blood. The doctor stepped back, shook his head once, then closed the door halfway. He caught it before it shut. The doctor said no. Voice flat. Said he would not ride. Not for her. Not for him. Not for anyone who brought Apache blood into town. The wounded man stepped inside anyway, dragged his leg behind him, left a trail on the floor. He pointed to the satchel on the shelf, told the doctor she was dying, that he had hours to act. The doctor crossed his arms, said no again. The man looked down, then reached to his thigh. He gripped the shaft still lodged there, tore it free with a sound that ripped through the silence. Blood poured fresh down his boot. He staggered, then steadied, held the arrow out, then threw it across the room. It clattered against the doctor's desk. Still no help. The doctor stepped back, said one more word that did not belong in a place meant to heal. The man stood there, shaking, pale, breathing hard. In the corner, a chair creaked. No one had noticed the other figure. An older man, weathered, gray in the beard, eyes like worn stone. He stood slow, walked forward, said nothing at first, just picked up the arrow, turned it in his hand, then looked at the blood on the floor, then at the man who had carried it here. Then said he would ride, said there was a time he would not have. But once a woman with braids and fire in her hands had stitched his ribs back together after a knife took half his breath. He owed one, and debts ride long in the desert. He took the satchel from the shelf, checked it, tightened the straps, looked at the bleeding man, said, "Stay here. Rest if you can." Then stepped outside. His horse was already saddled. He rode without a word, and the sun behind him threw a long shadow across the road that pointed east. The smoke reached them before the wind shifted. It curled high above the canyon rim, black, thin, old wood burning. The older man slowed his horse. The wounded one behind him narrowed his eyes and kicked again. His body shook with every jolt. They crested the final ridge together. The shelter was gone. Stone still stood, but the wood beams were ash. The frame collapsed. Fire had gutted the rest. Charred ends poked from the earth like bones. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The older man dismounted. His boots crunched through the debris. Ash lifted with each step. No movement, no bodies, just ruin. The younger man limped forward, fell to his knees near the edge of the fire ring. Something caught the light. He reached out. A necklace, half buried in dust, thin leather cord, a stone pendant, red, cracked across the middle. He lifted it slowly, turned it once. Recognition sank in like weight in the lungs. He gripped the necklace in his fist, looked past the ashes. The ground held more than fire. Tracks, bare feet, one set deep, dragged. The man crouched lower, studied them. A trail of blood marked the path away from the shelter. Drops first, then streaks, then a smear. The ground told a story. She had not died here. She had fought. Farther on, he found a stone surface smeared with blood, one handprint. The fingers splayed, dragged sideways. The tips caught in the grit like she had tried to claw herself back. He placed his own hand beside it, smaller, but strong. She had not been left. She had been taken. He stood. The older man watched in silence. No questions, no need. They both saw the same truth. No footprints led away from the handprint. Only horse tracks, multiple, fresh, headed west, toward a cut in the canyon that ran dry in summer and held no law any season. The wounded man closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. He dropped the necklace into his pocket and turned toward the trail. The trail narrowed between broken stone. Heat rose off the rock in waves. Flies circled in the dead air. The older man rode in silence. The wounded one followed close behind, his leg wrapped in fresh cloth. His hand gripped the reins too tight. Below them, tucked in a hollow of rock and brush, lay the outlaw camp. Canvas draped between wagon wheels. Fire pits black with soot. Men with rifles leaned against barrels and crates. Horses tied loose and restless. Movement at the center. She was there, tied upright to a post sunk into the hard ground, her face swollen, one eye closed, blood dried at the corner of her mouth, her arms limp, her head slumped forward, but she breathed. Behind the camp, high on the ridgeline, shadows shifted, Apache warriors, still, watching, silent, the men. Below glanced toward the ridge now and then, but did not fire. Not yet. No one wanted to start what they could not finish. The wounded man rode into the open first. Every rifle lifted. He raised one hand, the other still on the reins. The camp leader stepped forward. A big man. Long coat, wide stance, one pistol low on his thigh, the other already in hand. The older man followed and stopped beside him. No one spoke at first. Then the cowboy dismounted. His leg gave. He caught himself on the saddle and straightened. He walked forward slow. Said he brought her. Said he stole her. Said if they wanted blood, they could take his. Just let her walk. The camp leader laughed loud, called him brave or stupid, then nodded. Deal. 2 men untied her. She did not stand. She collapsed into the dirt. The older man stepped forward and lifted her gently, carried her back toward the horses. The cowboy did not move. The leader holstered his pistol. Then a shot rang out. Not from above, not from the ridge. From within the camp. One of the outlaws had raised his rifle and fired toward the Apache line. The sound shattered the silence. In the same instant, arrows flew from the ridge line. One struck a horse, another buried in a man's chest. Screams followed. The leader turned and shouted. Too late. Gunfire exploded. The camp turned inside out. Men dove for cover. Horses reared and tore free. Tents caught fire as lanterns fell. The older man shielded the woman with his body. The cowboy reached for his revolver. Bullets struck the ground around him. An outlaw charged him with a knife. He fired once. The man fell. Smoke filled the camp. Voices rose in every direction. There was no longer a trade. There was only blood. The air tore with sound. Gunfire cracked from every side. Arrows fell in sharp angles from the ridge above. Men screamed. Horses bucked and fell. Smoke thickened around the tents. Shadows ran between fire and dust. He moved through it blind. His shoulder slammed into a wagon. He used the edge to steady himself. His boot slid through blood. Another shot rang out. A bullet sparked off the wheel beside his head. He dropped low, crawled. The fire lit the path in flashes. He saw her, still near the post, half in the dirt, her body limp, face to the side, one eye barely open, skin bruised and burned. He reached her, fell beside her. Her breath came in tiny shakes, no strength behind it. He lifted her again, same way as before, arms under her back and knees. His leg bent and screamed. His side burned from where the knife had grazed him in the chaos. But he stood. Smoke curled around them. Ash stuck to his face. His chest heaved. His arms shook. He moved. There was no horse, only fire. The camp had turned into a cage of smoke and heat. He ran. His boots struck dirt and cinders. Sparks flew. Another bullet hissed past and tore a hole in the canvas behind him. A second hit the ground in front of him and burst dust in his eyes. He coughed, blinked, kept going. Arrows sliced low and fast from the ridge. One struck a post and snapped. He stepped over a body. One of the outlaws, still clutching a broken rifle. Then he heard the scream, close, behind him. He turned his head. An outlaw charged. Knife raised, eyes wild, boots kicking up dirt. The man did not slow, could not slow. He turned his body to shield her. The blade came fast, too fast. He stumbled through the smoke line and into open light. The sound behind him was still gunfire. Screams cut short. Iron clashed against stone. Arrows hissed down. Fire crackled somewhere close. But here it was still. The canyon opened into a clearing scattered with flat rock and bone-dry grass. He dropped to one knee. Dust rose around his boots. His arms shook under her weight. Her breath was shallow. He could feel it along his neck, the soft flutter of life barely holding, blood soaked into his shirt. Her hands hung limp at her sides, then hooves, from the ridge, from behind the boulders. They did not come fast. They did not come loud. Apache riders emerged in silence, painted faces. Bows lowered, eyes steady. They circled slow. Ha did not draw weapons. He stayed where he was, still kneeling, still holding her. One rider dismounted, older than the rest, worn face, strong hands. He stepped forward, no fear in him, no hatred. He placed a hand flat on the man's chest, pressed once, not a shove, not a command, a gesture. Then he nodded. Others moved forward. They lifted her gently from his arms. He did not resist. Her head turned slightly, just slightly. Her mouth moved, no sound came. They laid her across a fresh horse, tied nothing, held her firm between two riders. He watched them go. Then his body gave. He dropped to the ground, one arm bent beneath him, blood on both hands, dust in his mouth. The pain in his leg throbbed. His side ached where the knife had caught him. His head spun. He did not follow, did not try. He stayed there, alone. He looked down. His boots were coated in dirt, his knees torn from the run, his knuckles raw. Time passed. The wind shifted. Somewhere a hawk called, then nothing. Later. When the sun had dipped and the light softened, footsteps returned. He looked up. She stood before him. Not broken, not saved, just standing. She said nothing. Her hands moved, slow, careful. She placed the necklace in his open palm, red stone, cracked center, leather cord dark with sweat. He looked at it, then at her. But she was already walking away, bare feet over stone, back toward the ridge, toward the place she had come from. He never saw her again. When he stood, hours later, the ground where she had been was bare, except for one arrow. Half buried in the dirt, pointed at nothing. Left behind. Not forgotten. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment on the Old Western Tales.